Welcome, farewell fans, and welcome to another great show, great interview. So, listen, I know that we are in trying times, and with the way that the economy is going, we are losing jobs, we are losing patience, and some people are losing their minds. But we are here with Sheila, and we're talking about you know job loss in a sense, and how to better yourself in interviews and everything, so you won't be out there by yourself trying to figure it out. So, Sheila, thank you for coming on to the show. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm great, Bob. Thank you for inviting me.
Hey, not a problem, not a problem. So, we've had a little bit of conversation prior to this, and we've talked about people that are in positions that want to change jobs, people that are particularly in situations where they're losing their jobs. There's a lot of people that have lost their jobs at the beginning of the year, and there's some people that may want to transition, and some people may be scared to transition into other positions. Maybe they're scared of the interview. Maybe they are scared of, the environmental change. So just tell the audience a bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. As I mentioned a minute ago, I am 83 in a couple of weeks. And so the road hasn't been paved every time. I started out in 1964, which is way before most of you were born, I'm sure. And I got out of college miraculously and got a job as a home economist, which was something women did in those days. And from there, I was married, had a couple of kids, and I fell into a job as an interior decorator. And that's one of the things I like to encourage people to do. Be alert to the people around you, network your brains out, and pay attention. Because if somebody suggests an idea, check it out. And I got 4 of my 5 careers by references from people that just said, well, why don't you go talk to so-and-so? So that's what I did. And that's how I got a job as an interior decorator, which I did for about 10 years in a couple of different cities.
Okay.
And from there, I was lucky. I was going through a divorce. I had anorexia. I was miserable and crying most of the time. And a couple of my girlfriends came in and said, Sheila, we heard that the golf pro at the local country club needs a shop girl. Go talk to him. I said, oh, no, I'm scared. And they took me in to meet him, and he was lovely. And so I was folding shirts for a living and got another job from another girlfriend folding shirts in what was called the custom shirt shop. Well, when I was at the golf club one day, a golfer came in, and they're so focused on their game, and he was fussing with his putter. And next thing I knew, he put a piece of paper on the counter, and he said, Sheila, this is a phone number. Go call John. I said, well, who is John? He said, oh, he's at the capital markets. What are the capital markets? Let's go talk to him. Well, I went in and I did some homework first, which was one of my better moves. And so I kind of had an idea what it was about. Well, somehow I got hired. They trained me. I took the 5 horrible exams, got through it. I sold bonds to bankers and fund managers with assets over $3 billion. Wow. And the minimum trade was $1 million. And I was selling bonds and commercial paper and bankers' acceptances, really kind of obscure things. Anyway, from there, I was recruited by a headhunter to join Mellon Bank as a vice president. And I thought, well, this is kind of fancy. I'll do that. And I did not do my homework. So that's one of my other lessons. Ask lots of questions. First, ask questions of yourself when you're looking at a potential change. Who, what, when, why, where, and how. Next, start asking the employer. Ask questions doing research first, and then ask the employer who, what, when, why, where, and how. And do some serious homework before you accept a job, because I accepted that one and I failed terribly. Ooh. I hated the material. I hated the job. I was not selling the securities anymore. I was selling the computerized processing of the job.
Okay.
I hated it. But for some reason, I took the same position 3 times, got fired every time. Dumb. I didn't ask the who, what, why, and where questions of myself, and I didn't ask them of a potential employer. So at one point I was in Boston. American Express bought our division at the Boston company. I was fired for the 3rd time. Slipped on the ice, hurt my knee, was recovering with my leg up on the sofa, flipping through the want ads, which is what people did in those days. This was 1989.
For the farewell fans that don't know what the hell wanted ads are, we used to have to look for jobs through job boards, which was whichever was in your school. It was actual job board, like it was actual board with actual jobs on there. And then there was a newspaper, so you had to buy the actual newspaper and go through the help wanted ads, and it was like tons of ads out there that people would pay to place an ad in the paper, and then you would go through, you would call the phone number, or you would as they started to integrate emails, you would send an email, send your resume. That's before the internet. That's how you had to search for a job. You had to go and spend $1.50 for the Sunday newspaper, because it wasn't in the newspaper for the other 6 days out of the week. It was only in the Sunday newspaper, because that was the only newspaper that was big enough that had the comics in there, the classifieds. That was our entertainment. That when TV was going off at midnight, you had the newspaper. That was your morning entertainment, was a newspaper. That's how you get your stocks. That's how you get your stock numbers. The newspaper was everything that your phone was. It had the news, it had the local news in there, it had the national news in there. It had people obituaries in there that have died that you may not have known that had died. That's what the newspaper was. So for people that don't know what the newspaper is, they used to sell them on the corner for $1.50. If you didn't go into the store to find it, or go into I remember my grandma used to send me to the gas station to get a pack of cigarettes and a newspaper.
Yep.
And that came up to about $5. Okay. So, for everybody that don't remember what that is, I remember they used to sell newspapers on the corner. You just ride down, they $1.50. I remember they used to bring newspapers to your house. You had a subscription to the newspaper, and the lady would walk through, and she would have a little pouch, and she would sell you the newspaper because you had a subscription. To give you the newspaper, you pay her the money, and then she'd drop you off your newspaper. Then they moved away from that. You had to go get it from the store, and it was on the corner. So, but Sheila, I ain't mean to interrupt. I just had to educate him a little bit on the newspaper, because I remember the newspaper. I remember.
Many people don't, of course. Well, I was reading the want ads, and I saw an ad for teaching English in Japan. I said, oh, I speak English. I've never been to Japan. I'll check it out. So I interviewed, and I got hired, but I had to leave in 3 weeks. I knew nothing about Japan. I had no energy, interest, or time to do any research. I did buy a little book, preschool book for Japanese language. It had 10 words in it. I can't say I learned them before I left. I landed in Japan, assuming my financial background would be sought after. I was so wrong. I was shunned. And there I was in a foreign country, did not speak the language, did not know anybody. But here's the tip that got me through. I networked my brains out. And there's a huge international community in Tokyo, I discovered. And so I started meeting as many people as I could, asked a lot of questions. But in the meantime, I couldn't find a place to live. I would go to a rental agency, and they'd take one look at me and they'd go, Gaijin, no. I learned real fast, Gaijin meant foreigner.
Oh.
Additionally, I learned I was not only foreign, but I was a middle-aged white woman. Why would she be coming to our country by herself? Oh, she's strange. She's trouble. Nobody would rent anything to me, any place. So I went to the Episcopal Church, was an English-speaking church. And at coffee hour, I started asking around if anybody, because the corporate people from the U.S. all had huge, fancy condos with maids' rooms. And I said, does anybody have a maid's room they would rent to me with a bath? Well, they all had the maids' rooms, but they were using them. I went the second week, nobody would rent to me. I mean, nobody had anything. One point, the minister said, Sheila, come see me at the end of the week. I might have an idea. So I go, he starts asking me lots of questions about the church I went to in Boston and really quizzed me a lot. He said, well, I might have something for you down the hall here. I said, here in the church? He said, well, just come look. He takes me down there. It's a 10 by 10 room with a tatami mat floor. That's a straw floor. A hole in the floor as a toilet and a small sink and small shower. Well, the secretary had lived there before, the church secretary, and she left. I took it. It was $19.90. It was $900, but I was so desperate.
Wow.
I lived in that church for 7 years, all by myself, right next to the choir room.
Oh.
So I was a church mouse. You just got to ask questions and ask everybody and network your brains out. So I identified a need in Japan that I could fill. The Japanese executives wanted to learn public speaking and conducting efficient meetings in English. I said, oh, I know how to do that. So I started a business, and it was my fourth and most successful career. I was there 9 years, Bob.
Wow.
But it was networking, asking questions.
Wow, that is interesting. So
Different.
So let me ask you this. So can you share a moment where everything seemed to fall apart, but end up opening up a better door? Like, and which one of those moments do you feel like it was just falling apart, and then something better just happened to come along? Because it seemed like there was a lot of career changes you had right there, but which one would you say opened up a better door that lead to an even greater opportunity?
That was when I decided to stay in Japan. And I was just so determined. And I thought, what do you mean you don't want to rent to me? What do you mean you don't want to hire me? And the capital markets just laughed at me. Yes, they're all conducted in English, but honey, you're in Japan. You ought to speak Japanese. So I went, oh, well, I'm a right brain. I'm creative and artsy fartsy. I don't speak. I mean, I took Spanish twice and got a D the second time. So I had to just network because that's what I was good at. And I ended up, people that I met, mostly corporate wives, introduced me to their husbands. And so I was able then to do seminars and train public speaking and conducting meetings. And I did that for the financial companies primarily, Citibank, Merrill Lynch, Goldman Sachs. And then I also did work for a couple of Japanese companies, Japan Airlines. One time, Mitsubishi hired me, and it was way out in the country. And they said, we've got 50 men that we want you to train. They're all leaving next week for foreign countries. One day with 50 men to help them learn how to navigate foreign countries in English. It didn't cut it. I did it a couple times, but I was better off with the U.S. companies who had Japanese executives. They wanted to be able to communicate internationally. But I spent almost 2 years, Bob, struggling and just barely making it. But I was just so determined to be resilient. I grew up in a very dysfunctional household with an alcoholic stepfather and a cross-addicted mother. She did lithium and Valium and then chased it with a pitcher of martinis. So I was a runaway a lot. And I guess that helped build some determination and resilience and ability to just keep going, darn it.
So, okay. And so let me ask you this. When someone's navigating a big career change, what mindset shift helps them think outside of the box instead of staying stuck in panic mode?
Well, first, I think you do have to kick back a mile, take care of yourself. mourn. Go ahead and mourn for a while before you can get your act together, and then start thinking of what you did in the 8th grade that you really love to do. Maybe that's a way you can make a living. What else do you love to do that maybe is different than what your previous job was?
Okay.
How can you pursue an opportunity there? I loved public speaking, and I did not love finance or language or any of that sort of thing. So you have to decide, really, I didn't do that, but I discovered that that really makes a difference. You have to really like what you're doing. You also have to ask questions of a potential employer before you even talk to them, and learn a little about them. What is their MO? What do they expect of their employees? Can you find somebody that works there that you can ask questions before you talk to the person that's going to employ you? You want to employ you. You want to know about the department. And maybe you don't like that company. Maybe you decide you don't even like that field, that industry. What do you really, really like? But in the meantime, be good to yourself. Let's see. What else have I got for you? There are focus on helping someone else. I think that's critical. That is the best way, I think, to earn a living. If you can find something you love to do that is also helping other people. And if you think about it, everything you do really ultimately is helping other people.
Right.
I talked to a guy the other day that had retired as some kind of fancy chemist. That isn't how he would have framed it, but and he was talking to me about molecules, and that's how he loved studying them, and I said, well, you were really helping a lot of people that way. He said, oh no, I was just in a cubicle. And I said, you were helping whoever cared about that medical molecule you were developing or working with or whatever. So I think you are helping people more often than you know as a potential employee.
Right. So,
What else?
and let me add to that if you are navigating a big career change, the type of mindset that I would say that you should have is, one of resilience and optimism. And the reason why I say that is because you'll be able to, stay within good spirits when you receive those rejection emails or those rejection letters, and the no's will continuously pile up. But one of the things about keeping the optimism is that you got to realize that even though you may have interviewed for that position, you may have been in the top 3 to have that position. Those positions may not have been right for you. I have interviewed for a ton of positions, and in interviewing, I'm like, man, this will be a great company to work for. The benefits are great. Everything that I'm reading about is great. Going back to Sheila, your point, which is doing your research, constantly doing homework and finding out more about the organization and the company, find out what direction they're trying to go in, and just learning and more about the organization to see if it's a great fit, because every organization is not a great fit. It's just like a relationship. Sometimes you enter into a relationship and in the beginning, everything seems fine. But as you start to progress through it, whether it's a friendship or as a romantic relationship, you start to see things that start to seep out. You're like, you know what? Maybe this is not the type of relationship that I want to have, and it may not be beneficial. So the good thing about organizations is that a lot of information is on their website. A lot of information is, embedded elsewhere, whether it's news articles or whatever, that can help you make a conscious decision on whether or not you want to work for them, because they sometimes there's underlying issues there that happen with employees that you may or may not know anything about. So that research is great. They have platforms or forums where employees can write anonymously about a organization and what's going on there, or what their experience was being there, and what position that they were in, and whether or not that the CEO or the president or the supervisor, the managers, what the work ethic is, or what the work environment actually is. So stay resilient and be optimistic, because you're going to get a lot of no's, but it's not to discourage you. It's just for you to understand that that may not have been the job for you. And that's okay. We can't have every job. The job that we think that is the glory and will be the height of all jobs may not be that, may not be fulfilling.
Well, and I got fired 3 times from that a job I thought was like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it happens. And that's one of the core things that I want the audience to kind of take away from this conversation is that resilience and optimism. You gotta be resilient because you're gonna receive rejections.
You bet.
Um, you have to be optimistic because that's gonna empower you to keep going. Whether you're changing jobs or you're laid off right now, if you're trying to leave your current position for a new position, just keep on applying, keep on interviewing. You're going to find a job or a location that's going to be right for you that you may want to stay at for 10, 15, 20 years. Or it may be a job you only stay at for 5 to 8 years, gain experience, and then you move up within that position, or you move to another location if it's a national position, or you move to another organization that has a higher position that pays more. You're in more control, and you're going to have a lot more say so, and you may feel more comfortable in that position. You have people that like to stay in positions where they kind of just can tuck their head down, follow the rules and everything. But you have people that feel like they will be better in a leadership position. So they go and build the experience from different organizations to go to another organization to present their skills there.
And maybe even a different industry.
And maybe even a different industry. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I started off in government, and I got my degree in HR because I like HR. I like what it stood for. But the reality versus what you're taught in school about HR and what you're taught about and what you learn when you're actually in the industry is completely like night and day. And if you work in HR, you kind of understand, because I worked in HR and I know people that work in HR. And what I learned in school about HR is that HR works on behalf of the people. They are here to help the people. They're the mediator
I
between
don't think so.
the organization and the people. But the way I was, and this is the exact way I was taught, is that you are there to protect the labor force.
Good.
When the organization try to lay them off, you stand up for your people. You say, hey, that's what I learned in school. When I got out into the real world, that was completely opposite.
Yeah.
HR solely benefit was to stop the company from being sued. Their sole benefit was to make sure that they had the right people, but their loyalty lied with the organization,
You bet.
not the people. So what I learned in school about HR and what I learned when I actually got into the practice of HR was night and day.
The man with the gold makes the rules.
Exactly. It was night and day. And I was like, wow, I was like, this is completely different.
Yeah.
They made it seem like HR was this, you know, like this really upstanding, type of career where, yeah, you're right dab in the middle. You handle the negotiations. You do this and you do that, and if the organization say, yeah, we're gonna do this, then you have a right to stand up for the people. You are on work on behalf of the people. They made it seem like that's what it was, and I'm like, yeah, I understand that because I went through that and everything, and then I get out there and it's like, no, we don't care about them. They just numbers.
Yep.
We can fire them. We can work them down if we want to. We give them the demands and the orders, and they follow them. And if they
The
don't,
bottom line.
bottom line, and if they don't like it, they can go ahead and leave.
Yeah.
That was the mindset. And I'm glad you have brought up industry. So when I did get into that industry, and I'm like, okay, cool. HR is a very stressful,
I bet.
highly stressful job. Whether you're a recruiter, I've been a recruiter, I've been an HR generalist, I've been the director of diversity, equity, inclusion. And when you think about all these positions and what they mean towards the organization, even being a trainer in some situations, HR doesn't work on behalf of the people, work on behalf of the organization. You know,
Yeah.
they're just filling numbers that the organization needs, and that's it. They're there to protect the organization from the people. So when you are in this position, you get requests, you get concerns, you get lawsuits, you get everything. And once all that stuff happens, it's HR and the law department that's, hey, did we do everything we were supposed to do to avoid getting sued by this employee that's trying to sue us? They said they slip and fail, and it happened on a job. They're trying to get workers' comp. You know, we got to make sure that this is ironclad, iron tight. So even when you change in industries, if you're working in security and you're looking to go into IT, is IT going to be interesting to you? What part of IT you're going to go into and how beneficial it is for you? And then you want to make sure that it is a particular job that is growing over the years, because you don't want to go and get a certificate or a degree in something and the job change from year to year is decreasing. So so I know people that go into communication or they go into psychology. Well, here's the biggest issue with communicate. Here's the biggest issue with a psychology degree. As you understand that AI is starting to get a little bit more prominent and people are starting to have these conversations. What happens is that if AI is becoming, I seen a post that said AI is a better psychologist or a better counselor than an actual human. So if you're sitting here having a conversation with AI and it can give you better answers, why would I go to an actual person when I can get AI for cheaper and have more access to it whenever I need to? So what it would look like is, let's say over the next 10 years, what does the psychological and psychiatry field look like? It could look like a slow growth because more people will start to rely on a truth or a supposed truth from AI than actually going to see an actual therapist. And we're talking about the next 2 to 3 generations that's coming behind us, and that's 60 years. And we seen what AI have done in the last 5. So as people become more reliant on AI, I think that there will be more fields that are kind of going to start to, where the job change is going to start to kind of slow down as you start to put AI in those places, as people get
Yes,
more and more familiar with them.
absolutely. And I think it is definitely a concern. Um, I firmly believe that obstacles will lead to opportunities.
Mhm.
You really have to dig for the opportunities. And increasingly, AI is definitely going to make it difficult for job hunters.
It is.
You really just have to hang in there and dig and look for things where you can contribute something. AI is going to be able to do everything. It almost already does. So you just have to really be creative and determined. And I always like to suggest that somebody gets a job in the meantime. If you're between jobs, get a job doing anything. It looks better on your resume. It puts something in your pocket, and it gives you a little something else to think about. You're looking for a job, but at least when you're working, if it's waiting tables or mowing lawns or babysitting, whatever it is, it's keeping you busy.
Right.
And if you're dealing directly with people, you're more likely to have opportunities. If you're one-on-one with people, if you're a nursery school teacher, you're with people.
Right.
AI can't do that.
True.
So there are certain things that AI can't do, and I think you have to kind of start exploring what you might like to do that AI can't.
I agree. I agree. And as you move forward, there's this thing that people are looking for the perfect opportunity. How can someone train themselves to recognize and act
Hmm.
on unexpected ones?
How did you end up with what you're doing now, Bob? How did you find? It looks like you love what you're doing now. How did
Well,
you create that?
so how did I become to be? Well, I have two careers that I have right now. So my first career, I still work in government. I'm at an executive level position, and I got that position. I spent 16 years at one government position before I moved over into HR. And one of my mentors, which is remember that saying that it's not about what you know, it's about who you know.
Yep.
So one of my mentors messaged me and said, "Hey, we have this executive position at one of my
See,
old
that's what I was suggesting earlier.
and they
Yeah.
and they was like, well, no, I believe that you would be great for this position. Would you like to take it?" And I was like, at the time I was still working at HR, and I was a corporate level recruiter. So I was recruiting for this organization across the nation. Working with different levels, sponsoring events and everything. So as we started, once the offer came in, once the position came in, and I interviewed, and they sent me the offer and said that I had got the position. Uh, there was this waiting period that I had to let them know that I wanted to take the position. So I could stay at the position that I was at, or I can go to the other position and make like $20,000 more. And at the time, it wasn't about the money. It was more so about the opportunity, because I had spent so much time at my previous job. I mean, 16 years is a lot of time to invest
Oh gosh, it is.
knowledge and everything. And that was and this is kind of why I understand some of the positions that people are in, because when I left government and went into, the corporate world and doing HR, it was kind of that position of, I have all this knowledge over here and I can continue to grow. But I also knew that I'm not going to make the money that I wanted to make if I stay where I was.
Mm.
We were only getting 3% increases every year, and
Oh.
it wasn't beneficial, honestly.
No, because inflation would go up, it would kill it.
And inflation will go up and will kill it. So I knew that I had to make a move, and I was like, well, if I go into HR in 5 years, I can make what I was seeking to make, because my goal was to be an HR manager within 5 years. So at the time, and for anybody that was job seeking during COVID, COVID provided a lot of opportunities for a lot of people
Mm.
to move into different industries. Now, some people had received shell shock when they went into different industries. The expectation was a lot different than what they thought it was. I didn't have shell shock. What I had was a realization that I could move in HR anywhere. I can go in HR across the nation with the right experience. And it didn't really matter the industry, as long as I could sell myself enough and learn as I progress through it. All I need to know is the basis of HR, honestly. So in 5 years, my goal was to be an HR manager. But what ended up happening is I spent 3 years in HR, and I end up getting this other executive level position with government, because my experience in HR provided me with the insight and the knowledge, and I understood how union contracts worked.
Hmm.
So that helped me. And the position I was moving into was pretty much data analytics, which I had did in government at my previous job. So spending 16 years there, moving around from department to department, and then moving into HR for those 3 years, and then being offered the executive level job position. All that experience I had built up for that one job. And becoming a podcaster, what happened there was I started out um, with animation, and I was doing animation. So I was writing scripts for animation. I was doing animation myself, and I was producing those episodes.
Wow.
After after I produced those episodes, some friends came to me and said, we should start a podcast. So I was like, well, I kind of got an idea how to produce it, did some research, started producing a podcast. We got around about like 40 episodes. Everybody disbanded. Then I turned around and started working with, I started doing another podcast. And then my mom gave me the suggestion, more so the nudge, to start my own podcast. And since I had all that relative experience from doing voiceovers to writing the scripts to sitting down and being able to produce the video and everything, and I had all this equipment, microphones, boom arms, and I just needed a few more things in order to produce the podcast. And eventually I went into start the podcast and did it analog. From doing it analog, I learned a few things. You know, you start to bring in information. As I started to build that up, one of my cousins came and said, hey, is it possible that we can do a live show? Because I was having them on as guests as we were talking. And I was like, well, I could do a live show. I was like, it should be easy. Like, let me do some research. So I started to do the research. And from there, I learned more about video production, particular type of cameras, particular type of microphones. You know, the microphones I had were very intro level microphones. Like they were really entry level microphones. I was like, dang, I thought this was like a great microphone. Like it was $100. Like that's kind of expensive. But it was microphones out there that costed way more than that, and a lot more sensitive, a lot more robust. And then once you get through the video production and the audio production, then you had to get into lighting. Then you're trying to figure out the lighting. Then I had to learn about lighting and everything. And so as I started to build up the production, you get to a point where it's like, okay, now you're looking at, okay, well, what information am I getting out there? You know, what story do I want to tell? So when I first started the podcast, I was telling my story and I was presenting it to other people and everything. I was presenting it to parents. I was talking to fathers. I was talking to parents. I was talking to families. I was talking to people in relationships. I was having those conversations about the experiences that I had. Even talk about, you know, career change. Even what we're talking about, I've talked about that, me being laid off. How did I handle it? I talked about all the kind of journeys and struggles that I've consistently talked and preached about to my friends. Now I'm sharing it with the world. And now I'm still doing it on a grander scale now. And the word has gotten out. You know, people such as yourself have reached out to want to be on the show. They like the message that is going out there. It's not negative. It's all positive. It's not trying to clickbait anybody. It's really trying to get the core message out of we are about positivity. We're trying to help. We're trying to motivate. We're trying to inspire. And this is kind of how I'm starting my second career, I guess. This is what I'm in. To not only to be a entrepreneur, but also to be a voice for those that want to speak up but can't speak up, but also to be a relatable figure. I don't see myself above anybody, even in my job position with the government. Even the people that are under me, they say, "Oh, well, you know, you have a high position." I say, "No, I'm just an employee, just like you are." Like, we may have different responsibilities, but at the end of the day, aren't we all just trying to keep the lights on?
Got that right. I bet the people that work for you are happy working for you with that attitude. It sounds like they would feel you understand them and that you're on their team, on their side.
Well, I would hope so, because we're definitely a team, and you know, and that's the kind of job environment that you want to be in. You know, you want
sure
to
is.
be in a job environment where there's no prejudice, there's no nobody's being degraded, no callous, no malicious intent, anything. You know, everybody wants to come to work, and we spend 40 hours a week or more or less working with strangers. And we tend to become closer with those strangers as time goes on. We don't spend that much time with our family. We spend almost about as less time with our family than we do at work. And you want to be able to go to work and have a peaceful mind. You want to be able to go to work and have a clear conscience, be able to go there and it's not a toxic environment. Nobody's bullying anybody or talking about anybody, any of those situations. But sometimes it's not like that. And you do need that change of environment. You do need that job change. You do need to just say, you know what? I don't want to be in this situation.
Exactly. That's one of the things that I like to impress on people too. Don't let anybody put you down. You're too good for that. You're better.
Right.
When somebody starts giving you a unfair time, somebody's cruel to you, be gone right now. You're too good for that. There's too much else out there where you can do well doing what you want to do and not have somebody putting you down.
I agree. Now, Sheila, I want to ask you, now, is there, from the conversation that we had, is there one bit of advice that you want to give the audience?
Be good to yourself. You're the nicest person you know. And ask a lot of questions. I really think the 5 W's and how are really important to ask yourself and to ask about a potential opportunity, career opportunity.
Okay.
So if I were going to summarize, the first thing I say is be good to yourself. And after that, and don't take any guff off of anybody. If somebody gives you a really bad time, move on. You don't need that. It's not good for your soul, and it's not good for them either.
I agree. Well, Sheila, one thing I want to say is that I definitely appreciate you coming on to the show and having this conversation. I know that the audience is going to take the story that you have told and the experiences that you have had. They're going to know that they have the resilience to keep going forward. And without a veil, without with any obstacles that's in the way, they're going to go out there and they're going to look for different opportunities that is going to arise, is going to be beneficial for them. And they got to keep their ear to the streets and hope that once they go out there and they network, that other opportunities are going to open for them.
Here's one more opportunity for them. I was 59, thought I'd left Japan. I thought I'd retired. And again, I fell into a job as a flight attendant. It's a great job. Anybody can do it. It's wonderful. So I would encourage people to look at that as well. I did it for 17 years.
That is awesome. Well, farewell, fans. I provided you with another great interview, and I hope that this information finds you well and helps you in your job journey, your career journey, and you get to explore as much as you want, and you are successful to the heights of all heights. We will catch you on the next interview. Peace.
You are Mr. Nice Guy. Thank you.